You're not supposed to see a bobcat crossing a crosswalk, not under traffic lights, not beside coffee shops, and definitely not weaving through morning commuters like it belongs there. But one morning, in a city that never planned for wildlife, everything changed. It began with a blur caught on a security camera, then another, and another. A wild animal, alone, wide-eyed, moving through concrete like it was a forest it never asked for. People froze. Some recorded. Others whispered. How did it get here? Where did it come from? Was it dangerous or just lost? This isn't just a rescue. It's a story of dislocation, instinct, and impossible resilience. Because what happens when a creature built for silence and shadows is thrown into noise and neon, when every smell is foreign and every step could be its last? Today, you'll witness something extraordinary. Footage you won't believe, turns you won't expect, and a journey through an urban maze that turns into something far more profound, a search for home. And by the end, you may just question which world is truly wild. If this kind of raw, real story moves you, make sure to hit that like. And if you believe these journeys deserve to be seen, go ahead and subscribe. The wild has a voice, and today it's calling. The city of Phoenix never sleeps. Beneath its endless buzz of tires and neon lights, something wildly unexpected happened one crisp autumn morning. A bobcat, lean and wide-eyed, was spotted weaving through early commuters, its presence as startling as a thunderclap in a quiet church. No one knew exactly how she'd gotten there. Some speculated wildfires had pushed her out from the mountains. Others said new construction zones had bulldozed the fringes of her territory. What we do know is this: her name became Echo, a name born not from folklore, but from the way her silent paws echoed across sidewalks, parking lots, and broken alleys. Too quiet for a creature so alive. Captured in breathtaking footage, Echo moved through the heart of downtown with a mix of tension and wonder. Cars blared around her, but she didn't flinch. She tilted her head at red lights, peered into windows with her tufted ears perked. She wasn't panicked, not yet. But there was confusion in her stride, curiosity in her eyes. The way she tiptoed through the clamor said something primal. This isn't where I belong. But maybe there's a way through. Witnesses couldn't believe it. An actual wild animal, untamed, raw, surreal, roaming past bus stops and graffiti-tagged walls like a misplaced spirit looking for home. News spread fast, phones came out, videos went viral. People were captivated not just because it was rare, but because Echo wasn't just surviving, she was exploring. How often do we too find ourselves dropped into unfamiliar territory, unsure how we got there? A divorce, a job loss, a diagnosis. We look around and nothing feels like it used to. Our instincts whisper, go back. But back to what? For Echo, the desert wasn't just a memory. It was a heartbeat still drumming under the pavement, and whether she realized it or not, that heartbeat had started to call her. As day turned to dusk, Echo slipped through alleyways, her spotted coat nearly blending with rusted fences and burnt orange brick walls. She passed a grocery store, a playground, even a bustling coffee shop where no one noticed her at first. But the city noticed. The city always does, and with each step, her journey grew stranger, more urgent. Each moment, a quiet plea from nature, echoing in a world that had forgotten how to listen. But this wasn't the end of her story. Not even close. Because as the sun dipped behind the skyscrapers and the city lights flickered on, something in Echo shifted. A tension in her body, a new direction in her eyes, as if, beneath all the noise, she just heard something familiar. A scent, a sound, a memory. And with that, she began to move, faster, with purpose. And that's where things get truly wild. At sunrise, the city stretches awake, yawning through engines and espresso machines. But for Echo, this concrete jungle was already in full bloom. No trees, no birdsong, just flashing billboards, the scent of car exhaust, and a cacophony of sound that no wild animal was ever meant to decode. She emerged from beneath a row of parked cars like a ghost slipping through the veil. her coat dappled with morning light, her paws soundless on the sidewalk. A jogger passed inches from her, earbuds in, unaware. Echo froze, her golden eyes wide. One wrong move and this dance could end in chaos, but no one saw her. And that perhaps was her first lesson in surviving the city: invisibility. A few blocks down, Echo brushed past a food cart, the scent of bacon and toast hitting her like a wave. Her whiskers twitched. Hunger gnawed at her ribs, but the smells were alien. Delicious, yes, but meaningless. Nothing in this world reminded her of the desert, of the prey she knew. Still, she pressed forward. And then, she stopped. Glass doors, a warm interior glow, a coffee shop, buzzing with people, laptops, music. Echo stared through the glass, eyes scanning the movement. A child on the other side pressed their hands against the window, meeting her gaze. Time seemed to stall. Two worlds collided, one wild, one wired, separated only by a pane of glass. A moment of stillness in the heart of chaos. No growl, no fear, just silent recognition. She turned before anyone else noticed. Back on the move, Echo crept into alleyways where dumpsters loomed like iron cliffs. A feral cat hissed from behind a box. A pigeon fluttered too close. Her muscles tensed, instincts flaring, but she didn't strike. Not yet. This wasn't her hunting ground. It was a puzzle, and every corner she turned, every horn that blared, every scent that lingered too long, it all chipped away at her certainty. Even so, her curiosity burned brighter than her fear. She scaled a fire escape with feline ease, pausing on a rooftop where wind tugged at her fur. From there, the city sprawled beneath her like an alien landscape, endless and unknowable. Streets like rivers of light, cars flowing like mechanical beasts, people everywhere, oblivious to the wild heart pulsing above them. And perhaps that was the cruel irony. Echo had become both hidden and exposed, a stranger in a place where no one was looking for her. Yet every move she made was dangerous. Still, she wasn't giving up. Not here. There's something sacred in that kind of resilience, in the way a creature, built for silence and solitude, dares to navigate a world built for noise. Echo wasn't just surviving, she was adapting, absorbing, understanding. And with each block, she wasn't getting more lost. She was learning how to find something calling just beyond the buildings, something ancient, familiar, and wild. Night fell like a curtain soaked in neon, and in that artificial glow, Echo's silhouette moved with careful urgency, low to the ground, every shadow a potential threat, every scent a clue. This wasn't her world, but instinct had begun to take over. In the desert, she would have followed a trail. Here, she followed survival. The city may offer shelter, but it doesn't offer mercy. The first real challenge came when hunger clawed its way into her thoughts. Not a mild, curious hunger, but a deep, aching pull from within. She prowled past overflowing trash bins, cracked doorways, and drive-through windows. The scent of fried meat filled the air again, overwhelming but useless. Nothing familiar, nothing fresh. She tried nibbling at something wrapped in foil, but even wild animals have their limits. And then, water. A leaking pipe behind a grocery store glistened under a flickering bulb. Echo crept closer, ears twitching, paws silent. The stream was thin, barely a trickle, but to her it was a lifeline. She drank cautiously, her eyes darting between shadows and street sounds. In that moment, she wasn't majestic or mysterious. She was just a living creature, thirsty, vulnerable, and impossibly brave. But the maze wasn't done testing her. A sudden bark shattered the silence. A stray dog lunged from behind a dumpster, teeth bared. Echo sprang back, climbing up a stack of pallets in seconds, her claws digging into splintered wood. The dog barked again, then gave up. Echo stayed there, still, breath heavy, chest rising and falling. Her eyes scanned the city below, now pulsing with red and blue lights in the distance. Sirens howled, humans shouted, and somewhere, music played from a rooftop party, like the world was blissfully unaware of the animal navigating its underbelly. Shelter. That was her next instinct. But buildings don't bend to the needs of wildlife. She tried squeezing behind a shed in a community garden, only to find it locked. A fenced-in storage lot offered momentary rest, but too exposed. Eventually, she found a crawl space beneath an abandoned home. Damp, musty, lined with old insulation and broken beer bottles. Hardly a den, but it was dry, quiet, almost safe. It's easy to romanticize wildlife when it's framed in golden hour documentaries, but this was reality. A wild story unfolding in the most unlikely of places. And Echo, alone in the crawl space, curled into herself, tail over her nose, eyes wide open, remained alert, listening to a world that never sleeps. But something had shifted inside her. The fear hadn't disappeared, but it had changed shape, hardened into resolve, because even in this unfamiliar wilderness of metal and glass, something primal had begun to whisper through the cracks. A tug, a direction, a memory so deep it didn't need words, just the pull of instinct, urging her to move again. Toward what, she didn't know, but the wind was changing and Echo was listening. By the fourth day, the noise had dulled into a background hum, still jarring, still wrong, but no longer paralyzing. Echo had learned the patterns of the streets. She knew which alleyways stayed quiet, which doors were always opening, which corners smelled like danger. But even with this new awareness, something inside her began to shift. Again. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about returning. It began with a sound, subtle, fragile, the distant rush of water, not from a faucet or a leaking pipe, but from something deeper, wider, older, a stream, faint but undeniable. Echo lifted her head, ears swiveling, and for the first time in days, her body moved without hesitation. She wasn't wandering, she was tracking. That afternoon, she found a patch of green wedged between two industrial lots, a narrow urban park with cracked stone paths and manicured trees. But the moment her paws touched grass, her posture changed. She lowered her shoulders, nose to the ground, tail flicking softly. Her entire body seemed to remember. This is what Earth feels like. She walked the park's edge, following the scent of squirrels, rabbits, and damp soil. No predators here, just a fragile echo of the wilderness she came from. Yet it was enough to ignite a fire inside her. And with that, Echo slipped into the park's thickets, disappearing from view, like the city itself had finally loosened its grip on her. The camera followed as she moved through green spaces that stitched the city together like forgotten veins, creek beds, drainage ditches, overgrown bike trails. To an urban planner, these were just neglected zones. But to Echo, they were passageways, breadcrumbs. Her pace quickened. Her body language changed. Less hesitation, more purpose. A raccoon crossed her path, and she didn't flinch. Her focus was elsewhere, beyond. What was she following? A river, a memory. Something older than both. There's a wild intelligence in animals we still don't fully understand, a knowing that goes beyond logic or GPS. Echo didn't need a map. She had instinct, and instinct once fully awakened is the most powerful compass there is. One moment stood out in the footage. Echo paused at the edge of a storm-drained tunnel where the water trickled into darkness. Most would see a dead end, but she stared into it like she recognized something. And then she went in. It's hard not to draw parallels. How many of us have stood at the mouth of the unknown, heart pounding, knowing the only way forward is through? Inside that tunnel, the light faded. Only her eyes glowed. And yet, she pressed on. Because the call was growing louder now, not with sound, but with feeling, and what waited on the other side of that darkness would change everything. The tunnel spat her out at dawn, On the other side, the world was different, softer, wilder. No more sidewalks, no more sirens. The hum of the city faded behind her like a bad dream. Before Echo stretched a sprawling patch of marshland, untouched, quiet, pulsing with the slow rhythm of nature awakening. The scent of pine, the flutter of wings, and silence, not empty, but alive. She stepped forward cautiously, almost disbelieving. Her paws sank into wet soil, and her breath caught. The mud welcomed her like an old friend. Above, birds circled lazily. A breeze brushed past her ears, carrying scents she hadn't smelled in days: fresh water, moss, bark, life. And suddenly, she ran, not from fear, but with joy. The footage caught her bounding across a field of reeds, darting past tree trunks, leaping over a shallow stream with the grace only a wild animal could summon. No hesitation, no confusion, just motion, pure and honest. It was as if her body had been waiting to exhale, and now every muscle remembered its purpose. She paused at a hillside, the forest canopy rising in front of her like a cathedral. There, she crouched low, ears twitching, a rustle. Then, from behind a tree, another bobcat emerged, smaller, cautious. Echo didn't move. Neither did the other. For a moment, the tension hung in the air like a held breath. And then, the other bobcat blinked slowly. A subtle gesture of peace. They moved closer, circling, not touching, measuring, understanding. It wasn't dramatic. There was no cinematic reunion, just the quiet, profound rhythm of nature restoring itself. A reconnection to something sacred. A reminder that even when an animal is torn from its world, its story isn't always one of loss. Sometimes, it's one of return. From that point, Echo didn't look back. She moved through the forest like she belonged. Her posture changed, relaxed, aware, whole. She hunted. She drank from the stream. She vanished into thickets and reappeared at dusk, blending with the shadows like a spirit of the land. And just like that, the bobcat who had navigated traffic, glass, and steel disappeared into green. No fences, no cage, no collar, just freedom. Her journey was more than a rescue. It was a quiet rebellion against the odds, a wild heart refusing to break in a world not made for her. But Echo's story lingers even after the last frame fades, because in every city there's a ripple, a reminder that wildlife isn't a world apart. It's right here, watching, waiting, enduring, and if we're lucky, we might just catch a glimpse of it passing through, searching for a way home. She didn't roar, she didn't beg, she just walked quietly through a city that didn't understand her, and somehow she found her way back, without help, without noise, without a map. But Echo's story isn't just about one bobcat. It's about every wild thing trying to survive in a world that's moving too fast to notice them. It's about adaptation, resilience, and the quiet power of instinct. How many others have wandered out of their forests and into our concrete jungles? How many more are learning to walk tightropes of survival, balancing between fear and wonder, hunger and hope? And deeper still, how many of us have felt like Echo? Disoriented, out of place, searching for something that feels like home, even if we can't quite name it. Maybe the wilderness isn't always out there. Maybe sometimes it's inside us, waiting to be remembered. So tell me, what part of Echo's journey stayed with you the most? Was it the moment she stepped onto grass again, the way she locked eyes with her own kind, or the silent courage it took to disappear back into the wild? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep this conversation alive. And if you believe that real stories, raw, wild, and deeply human, deserve to be told, subscribe. Because here, we honor those moments, we share them, and we remind the world that wildlife isn't separate from us. It is us.